everybody. How you doing? And welcome to episode number 143 of the John Riley Project. And we got another great guest today. This is Jimmy Karam, a candidate for Poway Unified School District for School Board. Welcome, Jimmy. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me.
You know, we got a chance to meet maybe about 3-4 weeks ago over at, what is it, King's Coffee in Poway?
Hey,
what's the
King's Craft Coffee, yeah.
King's Craft Coffee. So, got a chance to meet there, and just so happy you were able to join me here on a podcast episode.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. It was good. I've been watching your podcast, so it was really nice for me to get the chance to actually talk to you in person, and we also get the opportunity to come here on your podcast. So
super. So I'm hoping that, you know, during this episode, the voters here in the Poway, Rancho Bernardo area, Sabre Springs area, can get to know you. So maybe if you could just give us a little bio on yourself, why you're running, your background. Just tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. So first and foremost, I'm retired military. I retired from the Navy back in 2016. So, and my last tour was actually at the Naval Academy, where I got to be an economics professor, and then I ended up running the department for a couple of years. And I really enjoyed interacting with students. I was also, an academic counselor, coached the football team as well as the baseball team as an officer rep there. So when I retired, I knew I found my passion in education, and I always knew I had a passion to serve my country or serve publicly. So I was looking for something to run for, and then it just made sense to run for a school board. And that's what I did when I retired in 2016. And then, so that was that election there was was at large. And so I thought I'd get another opportunity in 2018, but then they kind of cut up the district. And so my district I currently live in, District E, was not up for grabs yet. So in doing that, retired military education, really enjoyed that. I wanted to do something that I really wanted for myself when I retired. So I went back and got a master's degree in performance psychology. We can talk about that too. And so in these last 3 years, I've been helping out Poway High School football as their leadership mental skills coach. And so that's something that I really enjoy, along with my day job as a program manager. So,
right on. That's great.
Yeah. Well, we lived in Poway since 2007, and we were going to we lived in Sabre Springs. So we've been here. We knew when I retired from the Navy that we were going to come back to Poway. So that was always kind of a no-brainer for us.
So did you say it was, what's the district letter? Is it E?
Yeah, it's District E. It's kind of, in the past I've seen it as area, A, B, C, D, and E. Now they're district according to the website. So so District E is basically the south side of Poway, running from Morning Creek Elementary all the way over to Garden Road Elementary, and then Meadowbrook Middle School is in there as well. So there's a total of 7 schools. Okay.
And then it includes Sabre Springs as well, right?
Yes. So Sabre Springs would be like Creekside Elementary, and then Morning Creek Elementary too. So
okay.
There's 2 there. And my kids went to Creekside back when we first moved to San Diego in 2007. So.
Okay. So I'm just trying to get an understanding of where the lines are drawn.
Yeah.
Does your district go north of Poway Road at any point?
Yeah. So there's Pomerado Elementary, and then there's Midland Elementary. It goes up to Meadowbrook Middle School. And and then Valley's part of that. So there's like 6 elementary schools and 1 middle school. So it's right along that Poway Road corridor.
Okay, well, good. I mean, we're getting a chance to have potentially another Poway resident on the Poway School Board. So
right.
Really excited that you're running. One topic I want to talk about, and this is kind of the latest buzz, is this Instagram account that we've discovered that a lot of students have been sharing stories about racism and other things that they've encountered as a student at Poway Unified in various high schools. And I was wondering if you've got a chance to look at that.
I did. So there's Black in PUSD, and then there's LGBT in PUSD. There's actually 2 accounts. So that I just got turned on to that about a week or so ago, and I was reading through it, and it's pretty eye-opening. My two oldest went through Poway High School, and so I heard about some of these instances, but to actually see it in writing is another thing. It really spoke to me. And I was like, wow. And then I don't know if you noticed, like maybe a day or two ago, I started seeing teachers posting on there, and teachers were starting to talk about their experiences. And I think it's turning out to be a good platform for students and teachers and even some parents to be able to kind of speak their truth and make people much more aware of what's really going on.
Was there anything that you heard there or read that surprised you?
Yeah, of course. I'm not, how do I say this? So it's really hard to put myself in their shoes, right? If you're an African American, there's no way I can put myself in anyone's shoes there. And so it's always been an issue. It's an issue whether you're talking at the local level or even at the Naval Academy. For a matter of fact, we have those issues. What's going on, but then again, when you read the text, it really takes another level of experiencing it and seeing it, and it's just like, wow, I couldn't imagine what some of those kids are going through. So it needs to be addressed. It needs to be heard for sure.
Well, I think the school board is planning to issue some sort of a resolution to condemn racism and bigotry. But I'm wondering what can they actually do? Is there any ideas you have that could maybe ease some of these tensions?
Yeah, so I think it's important that there's a safe place for students and parents and teachers like to go to, right? So if you have a safe place that people know that they can have an outlet to when they're experiencing something of this nature, that they can actually be heard and someone can actually provide the assistance and support that's necessary for some of this. We're talking about the Naval. I've been talking about the Naval Academy. They do have, it's called a safe place. So basically, they provide extra training for teachers and professors and administrators, and they get this extra training on how to deal with situations like this. So and then they have a little placard they put up on their office door, for instance. So any student that's experiencing sexual harassment or assault or you name it, racism, if they see that placard on that office door, in this case probably classroom door, then they know that they can go talk to that faculty member and have an honest conversation. And there's boundaries as to what can be exposed and what couldn't, but giving the teachers the right training to deal with situations, and it's volunteer too, so it's not like everybody gets it. If you want to be known as having a classroom as a safe place, then you go get this extra training, and then it's a sign that students can see, and so when they're experiencing something traumatic like that, or even a microaggression, they can go to that teacher and have a good, honest conversation.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good start, definitely, right. To at least address it. And it is good that, we're turning over rocks, right? And kind of looking at what's underneath and exposing everything so we can now figure out how to take the best action forward.
Right. I totally agree, 100%, yeah. This is a little bit of a switch of gear, if you don't mind me going there, but you talked about being the mental skills coach for the Poway High football team. Yeah.
Tell me about that experience. What were you learning about students? What were some of their challenges, and what were you able to help them accomplish?
Right on. So I mentioned, so when I got back, when I retired from the military, football's always been part of my life. So I just love football with a passion. So I went and I volunteered. I was like a linebackers coach for the freshman team at Poway.
Nice.
And at the same time, I was getting my second master's in performance psychology from National University. And it was something I really enjoyed. So think of like a sports psychologist, what you would learn as a sports psychologist, but for performance-based. So it could be for musicians, it could be for, actors, and so anything. And so the idea is you learn these skill sets, and then you teach them to the students. And so in doing that, I realized after my first year, that I could have probably more of an impact on the team, not just as a position coach, but maybe as a mental skills and leadership coach. Scott Coates, he was the head coach there. He stepped down after last season. And so I approached him with this idea of taking on this new position. And, it would be volunteer. It's kind of a new thing. And I would use that as my field research project for my master's program. 2 years into that, it was fantastic. So what we did was, and Scott's idea was, let's have a leadership council. So I would meet with these students, volunteer again, once a week, and we talk about leadership skills, and we talk about mental skills, like how to deal with adversity, how to identify and address negative thought patterns, how to focus and how to concentrate on the task at hand, kind of stuff. So he was all for it, which I love him to death for, because he's been coaching for 20 years. Not many coaches I know will let you come into their house and kind of stir up the pot a little bit, right? But he was all for it. And one of the first things we did was we took some time out in the off season, and we came up with a vision statement. So we took the rising seniors and juniors, and we worked on a vision statement. Like, what does it mean? We talked about their purpose, their mission, their values. So there's lots of good research that says any adolescent will be successful if they can identify their values and hold true to them. So we spent some time on it, and we came up with a really good mission statement or vision statement. And I told them, we kind of talked about what it meant. And what was really fascinating with that group of kids is that community was really one of the biggest things for them. They talked about what would their legacy be, and I having these conversations with them, it took me way back when I was in high school too, right? So many questions, like, what's going to happen after high school? How am I going to be remembered, by my parents, by my friends, and my family, and my community? And that was really at the forefront of their mind. So, vision statement is like to pursue greatness in all that we do through trust, perseverance, and dedication for the growth and legacy of the team. That legacy part really spoke to the community aspect of it. So we did that, and we met every week. I would observe their performance on the field, and I learned it wasn't just the students, but it was the coaches need some help too, right? And even the parents, the coaches, they've been coaching because they've been doing that. That's how they were taught. That's how they coached for 20 years. But not to say it was right or wrong, but hey, there's some ways we can improve on some of your techniques and so forth. So we did a little bit of that as well. And again, Scott it was hard, but we got through it. And I say it was hard because having an honest conversation with a professional and who's been doing something for 20 years and helping them get better, and that's not easy to have on both sides. And Scott and I had that early on. We had these really good heart-to-heart conversations, and it wasn't always what you want to hear, but he definitely took it on board. And he probably he didn't even know I'm talking about it in this podcast, so that's great. But I would say my Super Bowl and that whole experience, I do want to share this with everyone because I think it really goes to the impact that it's had on this program. If you recall, and I know the community doesn't recall this, but if you go back to last year in April, we had the mass shooting over at the synagogue, and it was pretty tragic as it was. There was a moment where I think one of the parents came to Scott and said, "Hey, we need some help, setting up for Friday dinner, and see if any of your football players want to help out." And so from Scott, the conversation went. He took at his classic football players, and he asked them, "Hey, they need our help. Does anyone want to volunteer to go help on a Friday evening?" And I think maybe 4 or 5 kids raised their hand. And there's probably about 30 or 40 kids at this, and only 4 or 5 raised their hand, say they want to volunteer. It was like a short notice kind of thing. And then one of the rising seniors raised his hand, and he wasn't a team captain yet. He eventually became a team captain, but he raised his hand and he said, "No, I need more. I need more from you guys. This is our community, and I need more. I need more people to step up." And I don't know if you remember the Pomerado News the Chieftain had the picture of like 34 Poway football players helping out, and that was fantastic. And I wasn't a part of that. That all happened, but I know I was part of it in the sense that we talked about community, the importance of it, and we always talked about stepping up when the time was coming. And then to have another rising senior step up and say, "No, I need more from you guys." That was fantastic. And so I'm really, really happy to be a part of that team. That was great.
Yeah.
Hopefully I answered that question. It's kind of a long question, but a long answer, but that was pretty awesome.
That's got to be a great experience. And, sometimes these young men and women will surprise you, in our community of how adult-like they really are, in terms of their maturity. So it's really neat to see that happen and to experience that.
And the other thing that we did too, which it comes to mind when we talk about that, is just teaching these football players how to advocate for themselves, right? Because they're only like 15, 16, 17-year-old, adolescents, and to be able to not say challenge, but to be able to question authority doesn't always come natural, and not in a productive manner, right? Not in a way that comes off as being rebellious or just obnoxious, but have an adult conversation. And so there were a number of times where I met with these football players, so they had some kind of gripe going on with their teammates or with the coaches, but they didn't quite know how to address the situation or how to voice their opinion. And so I would meet with them on one-to-one occasions, and we would talk, and I would say, look, these are the ways you can go. And I'd give them different examples of how to approach the situation and just help them have an open mind. But it was fantastic when they took me up on it and they actually met with their coach or met with their teammates and they addressed these difficult situations, and they were able to advocate for themselves. They were able to give themselves a voice and be heard. And seeing that happen, that was very rewarding for me and made it all worthwhile.
That's terrific. Wow. And I think that's a pretty unique thing that you have as a candidate is a lot of direct contact and experience working with students, kind of getting a pulse on what some of their concerns are. That could be very helpful as a school board member.
Yeah, I hope so. Because it's important to put other people's shoes on, right, and see where they're coming from. So yeah, definitely from a student's perspective. Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of adult conversations, let's talk about the budget. In fact, I think the board is going to be meeting either today or tomorrow talking about it. And I saw the numbers, and with this COVID crisis, the budget really took a turn. And, they were already in deficit spending. Now the deficits are getting deeper. Reserves are being depleted. Yeah. There's a crisis going on. Kind of interested in your thoughts on the school budget.
Yeah, so it's not an easy fix, and it's not one that's going to go away, tomorrow for sure. So yeah, I think the district said they had something like $50 million in excess spending because of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, the way our funding is structured, we're not even know how much money we're going to get from the government until all the income taxes are paid, which has been extended to July 15th. So, and all these people being unemployed doesn't help the situation. So basically, we're spending more, we're getting less revenue coming in. I know Governor Newsom put out his in May revised budget, which had like a 10% swing on COLA for the funding formula. So basically, instead of getting 2%, we're getting negative 8%. And so that comes out to a bunch of money, right? And now I think just yesterday they released some details. I think the legislation had an agreement with the governor. It's not signed, but the details, I haven't been able to review the details. They just came out tomorrow to what that looks like. They came out yesterday. So the idea there is that my understanding is that there's not going to be these draconian cuts to education in California, but there's going to be some deferral payments. So we're going to be whole, but we're not going to, the state's not going to be able to give us any money until, later on down the road. So what that means is school districts that are strapped for cash because of these deficit spending we're talking about are going to be hurting. I believe Poway is going to be okay for the short run, but I think eventually those budget cuts are going to come to fruition at some point. So I know I've been studying the budget. I've been studying the budget of other school districts to kind of see how we compare. And I think we do better than most districts in San Diego County. I don't think we're on the short list for the county to come take us over like Sweetwater or whatnot. So, but nevertheless, we're gonna have to make some cuts. I think it's either sooner or later kind of thing. It'd be interesting tomorrow as a school board to see how they adjust these new numbers that just came out, and we'll see how that goes. But I've always been concerned about our deficit spending. Even when I was running back in 2016, we were pretty healthy back then, but there's all this deficit spending, and in 4 years that hasn't changed. And it kind of blows my mind a little bit why that is. So I'm sure Gavin Newsom's probably looking for a federal bailout, and I don't know if that's going to come. I don't think that's something we should wait for. And so there's all kinds of concerns, lots of questions like, what is it going to look like in the fall? Are we going to have online classes? Are we going to have on campus? That all affects the budget, right? So there's so many questions that and again, it's not an easy fix. I think we're going to be dealing with a strapped budget for at least 5 years going into the future. I don't think it's something we're going to get this windfall from the federal government and be okay again. So, real quick, just one more thing I just thought of. Because of these deferral payments, though, that's something we have to, I'm going to be watching tomorrow to see how they address these deferral payments. What that means is that we have less cash. So we're going to have to look at some internal borrowing mechanism. If there's money elsewhere and some other pot of money that we can borrow from, and I think we can do that in the short run. It's legal to do that. And if that's not the case, then you have to go, outside to external sources to borrow the money until we get our funding from it. And so it'll be really interesting to see how Poway Unified addresses those situations going forward. And I'm hoping to get some answers tomorrow during the board meeting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, just to share some of the numbers, I think for the 2019-2020 school year, they're forecasting a $15 million deficit.
Right.
And then the next school year, 2021, a $37 million deficit, which will bring our reserves down to $8 million, which is like around 1%.
Right.
That means that in the 21-22 year and the 22-23 year, they need to cut $42.5 million out of their budget. That's a ton.
And like 80% of our budget, 85% of it's going to salaries, right?
Right. Yeah. Benefits and everything else, right?
Sure. So it's people, exactly where I was going with that. So what do you do? And I think that's why they've been kicking this can down the path for so long, because nobody wants to make those difficult decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is, I don't know. Again, I think of Gavin Newsom, he's waiting for this windfall from the government. I think you got to be more responsible in that. And I think whatever budget cuts you do, they have to be in line with your values, right? And that's what we need to get serious about. What do we hold near and dear to us moving forward? I would hope it's the kids, right? That's the whole point of education right now, is taking care of the children, right?
So I think a lot of this is driven by labor and by the unions. And, the school board generally has been very, how should I say, they've
pro-union.
Yeah, that's one way to say it, but definitely they've always been giving out raises. That's been one of my criticisms, is that they've been giving out raises they couldn't afford. I don't know if the unions have done any endorsements yet. When does that cycle usually occur?
If I remember correctly, in 2016, it typically happened around, I want to say, September, October time. It was kind of late in the game because I remember school was already back in. I remember I interviewed for some of those endorsements. I didn't get them at the time because when I was coming in 16, I was just getting my feet wet with the whole political process and campaigning and for instance, I thought it was, it's a nonpartisan position. A lot of people don't realize that the school board is a nonpartisan position. So why would I need to go get a Democrat or Republican endorsement? But I learned that was not the case, right? I mean, it was a learning experience for me, but that goes back to the unions. I always thought maybe this is a conflict of interest if I go for an endorsement from the union, and then they're going to be expecting they're going to buy my vote for a pay raise. So I think what's really missing is those critical questions. Is like, what are you giving up when you give that pay raise? What are you sacrificing? What are you not paying for? And I don't hear that when I go to the board meetings. I don't hear those critical questions coming out in the public. They might happen behind closed doors, but that's really, if you're an advocate for the students in the community, making sure our taxpayer dollars are paid or used wisely, I would like to see those questions be public and have answers to them so everyone can benefit from them. Because I think I don't know if it's true, but I just feel like sometimes these decisions get made and the public's kind of left out in the cold, not understanding why they were made. And that's one of my things is about community oversight and community relations, and that's incredibly important because you have, and I think we spoke about this earlier, but my philosophy on leadership and taking charge or making it's not hard. Difficult decisions are not hard. What's really hard is explaining why you made the decision. Being able to explain all the information you took in, all the considerations you made, the analysis, and then being able to make a decision and articulating why you made that. Now, if I do that, and I've done this a number of times in my career, people might not always agree with what I say, but at least they'll understand it and they'll respect it. And then we can move on. And if we have difference of opinion, we can have a good adult conversation about it. But I don't think that's happening in the public, at least. And then, so that's where you get a lot of people trying to fill in the gaps on their own, and it's a slippery slope there.
Well, you're right. I think that's part of the frustration for voters and for even people in the media. They see politicians voting certain ways. They don't know why. They have a suspicion why, in terms of the power structure and who's scratching whose back. But this is on the national level. One politician that I greatly respect is Justin Amash, and I've talked about him a lot on this podcast. And one of the things that he does is he will explain on his Facebook page all of the difficult votes he makes and why he voted the way he did. And what's interesting is that even if you don't agree with the way he votes, you respect what he's doing because he's respecting you and explaining himself. I just thought that's fantastic.
And that's exactly how if you go back to, so I've been a military officer for over 20 years and I'm retired. And so you learn a lot about leadership, and it's not like reading a book. It's not like watching YouTube. I mean, you actually got to go out there and practice it, right? I mean, imagine trying to learn how to play the trombone from just reading a book. It doesn't work, right? And I've always learned, and I've always taught, and this is going back to the academy, I've been able to share this wisdom with the children going ready to go out into the world and leave this country, is that when you're dealing with difficult decisions, you have to really take a step back and understand why you're making the decision you're making, and then be able to back it up and articulate that. And when you do that, it makes the conversation going forward so much easier, and it builds rapport, builds trust. So nothing but good things. The problem is, it's hard for people to do that. It's a skill. You have to it's really a skill to be able to analyze why are you, to reflect upon why you're doing what you're doing. And does it make sense? Is it in line with your values? And so if you can say that these are my values and this is the decision I'm making, and yes, they are aligned, then you're golden at that point. And again, you're not going to make everybody happy, but at least you have the respect and understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I agree completely. So hopefully if you're elected, you'll have an opportunity to do that. And I think if you do, you're going to get great respect from people on all sides of the issue. I think people will really rally around that.
Right, and I hope so. That's what I'm campaigning on for sure.
The other kind of hot issue lately with the school district is the Poway Center for the Performing Arts, PCPA. The city and the school district kind of have a joint use agreement. They share it, but now I think they're talking about either the city selling it to the school district or at least transferring management to the school district. I don't know how that's going to shake out, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the Poway Center for the Performing Arts.
So I've been doing a lot of research on this, trying to figure out what's really going on. And I know there's a group out there that's doing the same thing. I even talked to two different current board members about what's going on. And here we are the day before. It's the day before their board meeting is tomorrow. And I think they're going to finally first discuss it in closed session tomorrow with the board members. So, and we already know there's been discussion between Poway Unified and the city council about negotiating how this is going to work, if it's going to work at all. And what I've been able, and the biggest concern I can see, so most people that I've talked to are like, no. Okay, but there's two different kinds of no, right? There's a no from the Poway Unified School District side. They're saying, how are we going to pay for this? Not just for the procurement of the building or the facility, but for the maintenance and operations of it, right?
Yes.
And then there's the no from the city council side, the members, not only the city council, but the people on Poway side, who are like, well, if the school buys it, does that mean Poway on Stage is going away? Does that mean all of our professional services? What does that really mean for us? Mm-hmm. And so those are two very, very valid concerns. And going back to what we just said a moment ago, there's this lack of transparency. Nobody's being able. There's no information that's really helping fill the void. And so people are starting to do some research on their own, which is great. To kind of hold them accountable. And so I don't know what the details are. I've seen so many different numbers on like what the actual maintenance costs are. And quite honestly, if we're going to be frank about this, Poway City Council has really mismanaged this entire facility. They in my mind, they were taking like a $600,000-$700,000 hit every year on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that just blows my mind. Like, how do you do business like that? It should be at least breaking even. Right. So there's probably some contractual agreements here that were not favorable to the city. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, they're not upkeeping it, so there's a lot of deferred maintenance going on. So if there's a transaction,
dollars.
Well, that's again, I know what the number says, but let's open it up and let's see what's really missing, right? Because I guarantee that number changes if you want to maintain this as a professional facility for professionals to come and perform on, as opposed to just for children to do their plays or their orchestra, recitals or whatnot. There's a difference in cost of how you want to maintain this building depending on the purpose of it. So what is the real cost? We won't know until we understand what the real use is going to be. Because I almost suspect that Poway Unified has a different thing in mind than the city does, right? Mm-hmm. And again, I'm a little bit of speculation here, so I don't really know what the real deal is. And I would love to be in there in those negotiations, figure it out. Because if you really deferred maintenance on this for so long, I mean, well, is that part of the negotiation to make purchase? Are you going to be able to, maybe do a co-op between the city and the school, which you've already done? But and then the other part of it is, okay, so the Poway Unified buys it. Can they maintain? Do they have the expertise to operate it? And then what is that going to cost? That's not going to come out of a facility fund. That's going to come out of your general fund if you're talking about salary again. So there's all these questions that come up. So to be able to have this conversation or even vote on it here in the near future seems really, really odd to me, because there's a lot of questions that the taxpayers don't know what's going on. So why not do some workshops? Let's figure this out. Let's figure out what are the options out there? What's in the realm of possibility to make this transition if that's what's really going to happen? And then the other thing is, what about a third party coming in and making the procurement on the facility? That hasn't even been discussed. So I don't know. There's so many variables, and it just blows my mind how behind closed doors everything is, and there's a lot of stakeholders that are kind of left out in the dark, and I have a real issue with that at this time. So.
I think it's widely embraced by the community as an important asset in Poway. But yeah, who's gonna hold the hot potato? As far as $600,000 to $700,000 a year in the red, which is incredible.
And it's not just like 1 year. This has been like ongoing.
Yes. And then meanwhile, the school district is going to have a $37 million deficit next year.
Yes.
And you're like, how does this work? So it seemed like with Measure P, the bond issue that failed in March, that might have been a way to get money and kind of move money around and open up space in the budget that they could use for the PCPA. So
yeah. That failed, so now where's the money coming from, right?
Well, they're going to keep coming back. Is the bond measure going to be on the ballot in November?
I have not heard about that yet, so I've asked, but it seems like everyone I ask right now, the main focus is, what does school look like in the fall? It seems like everyone's attention is really drawn to COVID-19 and how we get back to normalcy, whatever that new normalcy is. So I have not heard or discussed with anyone that says, yeah, we're going to put the bond back on the ballot in November. And honestly, I don't think they know if they're going to do that at this time. But we can talk about Measure P and my thoughts on that.
Yeah, please. Let's share. What did you think of that bond measure? Yeah,
so I think it was needed for the school district. The facilities are kind of, the health it's diminishing, right? I don't want to say dilapidated. That's a strong word, but they need some funding for that. So I think that's necessary. My concern with it, and everything I've read, including the surveys that the Poway Unified put out, and talking to everybody in the community, maybe it was too much. It was only like a $500 million, kind of a little more 400. So that was one concern. But more importantly, I think it was a trust issue. And I know it came up in every discussion, because of all the history of Poway Unified with the previous superintendent and all that. There's trust that's still not there. And the school district would always say, well, it's new leadership. Yeah, I get that, but the pain's still there, right?
Yes.
And then you're going to come back and ask me for another $500 million more later on, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then they did a really good job. They had a nice little, basically a plan how they're going to spend the money, and they talked about how they were going to prioritize projects and all that. And I thought that was a great move on the district's part. But I mean, we didn't start talking about this bond until like 2 or 3 months prior to March, and so now and they did workshops. They did a good job getting out to the public and trying to explain the bond. But to build trust in 2 or 3 months for over $500 million, I think it's a little quick. And I think a lot of people that I talked to felt that it was kind of being kind of rushed and kind of thrown down their throats a little bit, and they had to decide. And there's still questions to be asked. And so I would have advocated for a longer window to get the message out, to have these community relations built up, and give the people a chance to speak their mind and kind of a voice at the table. And so the fact that it felt like it was being rushed, it was such a large number. And oh, by the way, we still have the cab out there. We're going to be paying for that in 10 years.
Yeah.
So so many concerns there. I could see why I felt. But here's the other thing about it, though. It wasn't the only bond that failed in that election. It was kind of a systemic thing. So it was kind of like the public saying to schools that we're not paying this time around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was isolated to Poway Unified, but those issues I just brought up, I'm sure just kind of added on to reason why it did not pass.
Yeah, I think there was, I don't know how many school bond measures there were in the county, but it was a good handful of them. And I think every one of them lost, didn't they?
Maybe one or two. Yeah, I have to go back.
Yeah.
But they're all, and then, so it was more of a systemic thing going on. And that was all prior to COVID too. I mean, really, we didn't know about COVID-19 at that point. So I don't know if it's going to come back in November. I honestly, I don't know what they're going to decide.
My suspicion is it'll come back. They'll be asking for more money at some point, whether it's in November or if we wait until 2022.
Sure.
Because that's been the history. I mean, back before the $1 billion bond passed, they tried multiple times to pass it.
Okay.
And then that was back when it required a 2/3. And then they changed the rules, made it only 55%. Then they finally got passed. So I think they'll be coming back. I just don't know when.
So, and then the other part is like, how much are they going to ask for? Are they going to come back for another $500 million, or are they going to ask for like $200 million, right? Something that's more manageable. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. We'll see, right? It's
amazing how enormous amount of money that is, and we just kind of talk about it so flippantly. But I agree. I think there is a legitimate need for upgrading facilities. I'm not disputing that. But to your point, I think that there is a trust issue. School board members are trustees, and I think the trust was eroded, back with the $1 billion bond and Superintendent John Collins, and we just haven't gotten back. The school district and the board haven't gotten back in the good graces of the public. I don't think.
And that takes time. It takes time, and you need some small wins, right? You need something to show that, hey, so getting out into the community, I think, is a big part of it. So something that's really different now, when I'm running now, as opposed to, in 16, where it was at large. So you had, 36,000 students to kind of get out, and then I think population about 135,000 people, right? Now in my district, we're talking like 22,000 people. We're talking 7 schools, much more manageable, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I've been doing is I've been getting out to the public. I've been getting out, been kind of cold calling principals and PTA members and parents, and just to try and see, I think I know what the issues are, but then I want to know, is this, what are their issues? That's really what I'm here as their representative. I'm running to be their representative. And I'm finding out there's a lot of things I had no idea about. It seems like the more I learn, or the more people I meet, the more I learn, the more I need to go learn more, right? It's like, it's just ongoing, which I love. And I love talking, but here's something that I think a board membership, one of their duties should be to get out and engage with their constituents, right? So there's a couple, I talked to a few different principals, and one of them said, hey, look, in the last 5 years, I've seen a board member on campus twice.
Wow.
Yeah. Another one said, well, the only time they come by are for photo ops, and they don't really know what's going on, right? And we've all seen the photo ops, right? Of
course.
And so that is no way to represent your district. I mean, and I don't know if it's because people were elected at large. Now we're in district. So these are the people I'm going to represent in this school board. So I'll take their issues. I'm sure our issues in South Poway may be different than North Poway for whatever reason. But the point is to be able to articulate what those issues are and advocate for those. So if there's going to be budget cuts, I'm sure we have different needs. Some of the schools in my district are Title I, but some of them are on the margin, and that might affect them more so. And so if there's a need that needs to be a need that needs to be addressed, then I want to make sure that I represent them at those board meetings. And I would expect every single board member to do the same thing. And that requires talking and getting out and to hear out the public and not just show up for a photo op, right? So I learned a lot. I talked to one of the parents today on the phone, and and I just reached out and I said, hey, I'm running for school board. I'd love to kind of pick your brain and see how things are going for you at an elementary school she's at. And she had nothing but good things to say. So that was fantastic.
Nice.
And then she had a recommendation. And I said, okay, that's great. And so we talked about her recommendation and how we could make it, work or not work, or, why it might be the way. I don't want to get too specific because I can't promise everything to everybody, but I can definitely hear them out, and we can have a conversation about, again, not being right or wrong, but just getting better. How do we get better from here? And so it's not always, which I love, because it's not we're not complaining. We're just, hey, here's how it is. Here's some issues we're dealing with, and I can take that and I can run with it, and I can, so I really enjoy that. I didn't do that last time because I just ran. I was just trying to run, and I didn't really get out into the community and have these conversations. And now that I'm doing it, it just energizes me even more to get out there and keep those conversations going.
What are they telling you? I mean, you don't need to take a specific person,
Sure.
but is there a theme that
Sure.
you're hearing? What are the big issues that are concerning parents and are also concerning school principals and teachers?
So on my website, I talk about equity over equality. That's that was not there, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago when I started talking. That seems to be the biggest issue. Are my concerns being adhered to, right? Is having this engagement, having this voice at the table. These are smaller elementary schools. They feel like they're being left out of the decision-making process that's occurring at the district level. Who's advocating for my needs, right? That's not happening. There's no engagement from a board rep. There's no board member there to hear them out and to be able to advocate for them. They're not getting that. So that engagement, that lack of transparency, what's going on, that's usually what's really coming up. There's a economic disparity between people, affluent people live in high north, and then some of the folks in these Title I schools. So when you talk about foundations, that's a concern. I don't have the answer for that, but there's some schools who can raise a buttload of money. The other schools not so much, right? I mean, I don't know how to say it.
It's real.
But it's real. How do you deal with that? Right. So again, their needs are different, and I think what's really missing is that engagement and that representation, and that really is probably a common theme that I'm hearing from every parent, every administrator that I talk to. I talked to a number of PTA reps, and they've got the great story there too. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I'm hearing from them.
So going in, when you are announcing your candidacy, and what's the big problem you want to solve? What kind of really innovative idea do you have to bring to the table? What's something special you can do, or at least you can propose? Sure.
So in March, I addressed the board about this topic. I'm really passionate about it. So in the performance psychology degree I got, and then helping with the students we talked about earlier, I started up a practice, and now it's kind of like on idle, basically to help athletes, not just be good, but be great at what they do, teach them all these life skills, right? But the more I thought about it, I was like, man, this is, every kid should have this. Like, this isn't just something for, an Olympian athlete. I mean, this is something that, because if you think about performance, it's not just, running around on a track or playing a basketball game or football. I mean, you can talk about academics, right? Sit down and take a test, you're performing. And you could use a lot of these skills to regulate your temperature and your anxiety and whatnot, and do really well. So, and I had an issue that only affluent students and athletes can afford my services. I didn't like that. I thought everyone should prosper from this. I go back, I'm an economics professor. I teach at Palomar as an adjunct, and the first thing I hit every student up with is Adam Smith. All right, and the wealth of nations, and the roles of government, and the roles of government to protect your citizens from social injustice and oppression, to protect your citizens from foreign powers, and then the third one that he talks about is basically providing public goods, public services, and so I think of mental skills and life skills as a public good. It's something that we all can benefit from. It's not something that we should pay for. It's not something that if I use it, it's not going to preclude anyone else from using it. So again, and if we teach young adults or adolescents how to use these skills, I think it's just all of society benefits from that. And so my proposal is, hey, we need to get some more counselors, right? And I know this, they've heard this before. They get it. More counselors. Yeah, that just costs more money. Hey, did you know we got COVID-19 going on? We got all these budget issues going on. How do we get more counselors? No, I get that. Well, here's my proposal. My proposal is, why don't we team up with our community resources? We're in San Diego with a lot of universities around here, a lot of schools around here, and they're not only learning how to be, sports psychologists or social workers, but there's a lot of different programs out here and these students need their hours. In order to get certified, they need to get their hours. And so why not we have a strategic plan that goes across Poway Unified School District and utilize internships to come into our program and then get their hours. Our students get the services, and we can do it at a very low cost. And you might pay one supervisor to manage the number of interns from different schools, and you get it's like a force multiplier if you start using that. But I think what's important to do that, you got to go all in. You can't just do it willy nilly. You can't just kind of half-heartedly go in. You got to have a strategic plan and be able to implement it and have these connections with these universities. So I've talked to my mentor at National. He thought it was a great idea. He's got a classroom full of nine students that could totally benefit. I'm sure Alliance has something. I'm sure San Diego, SDSU has something. You see it. So there's lots of benefits. So we need somebody to go out there and be an advocate for Poway Unified to stand up something like this. That's one thing I thought of, but I know, being a school board member, there's a bunch of other things that's going on, but you asked me if there's one thing I can implement, that would probably be it right there.
Yeah. I mean, you hear a lot about that, sort of like life skills is not really taught, like how do you balance a checkbook or, certain basic things about how to be a successful adult. Some students don't get that from their family.
No, and I can tell you, Naval Academy, I think the top 1% of the nation goes to the service academies, and one of our most popular classes was personal finance. Because you're right, they don't get it. No, it's true.
Yeah, so absolutely. I could see a lot of that being helpful, and wouldn't it be great to have mentors from local businesses that can provide that? And not only would that be a financial win for the district, but it would be a good thing for the community, right? Absolutely.
And so leveraging our community's resources, I think, is what we need to do a better job of. And we have a lot of smart parents in the district, right? Oh, yeah. And so let's pull them, see where their expertise is, and let's see if we can get them in. So I'm sure they would love to volunteer and help out. And yeah, I'm sure the personal finance is the number one. That's another one that we would always stress at the Naval Academy, because coming out of there, you get like a $30,000 loan, like at 1%. They call it like a starter loan. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised how many guys and girls just go off to Vegas.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
So, not a good day. But I mean, I'm better at it now, I'm sure. But yeah, I shouldn't say that. That's all right.
That's all right. What do you think's going to happen in the fall? Or do you think the students are all going to go back? Is there going to be a hybrid model with distance learning and in classroom? I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so the latest guidance I understand from the district is they sent out a survey early on, and they asked parents if they wanted to do all online, all on campus, or some hybrid. I think a hybrid model option got the lowest percentage. So now they're going to do a second survey and offer up just the two, either all on campus or all online. I think it's premature. I mean, but you got to plan, so don't get me wrong. So I think it's premature in a sense to make a decision, because we know that our numbers are just continuously going up in California when it comes to COVID-19. But
right.
And I don't think what's concerning is if the hospitals get full and then you can't get treated. I think that's concerning. But to answer your question, I think I would love to see a hybrid model personally, but I know that would take an extensive amount of planning, more than 2 or 3 months to really plan it out and do it right. So I think you should have an online option for students or parents that don't want their student to go back because they know there's not going to be a vaccine in 2 months, right? And I'm sure there's teachers out there that don't want to go back as well, especially in the high risk category, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it seems like a no-brainer that you have to have an online option. Then it goes back to the on-campus option, right? I think you can offer that for people that feel the opposite of what we discussed. They're okay with it, and that you got to give them choice, right? So, and I'm sure there's teachers that feel the same way. But here's the trick on that one: you got to be ready to switch it to an online campus, right? Go from on campus to online curriculum. So you have to have a hybrid that's not a hybrid, but you have to have curriculum that's flexible to go both ways. Very much like what we did in the spring. Now, I don't know what they're going to do, but that's how I would do it. I would plan for both. I went to a few webinars on a number of other districts in the state and how they do business. And it seems like the ones that were most successful were the districts that already had an online presence. They had that option already there. So I think we should definitely start moving in that direction, regardless of what happens with COVID-19. I think some students just do better in that environment. They're more, self-starters and more, so they can do the self-study thing and do it quite well, and that's okay. So I think having those two options, I think is incredibly important going forward. And then understand if you go on campus, just be ready to switch it back to online. Now, I will say that I was impressed with the district and what they did in the short period of time that they did, but going back to March, I really like how they, within a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, we were basically online. I'm an adjunct professor at Palomar, as I mentioned. We did the same thing, and that transition is not easy. It's not easy for the parents. It's not easy for the administrators, and it's definitely not easy for the children, right? So everyone's going through this change, and they're trying to deal with it the best way they can. My wife's a preschool teacher, and preschool and online just I don't think it works. And I got to say though, I really enjoyed watching my wife dance in front of the computer to her Zoom class. So, but it was good, but they did what they can. I mean, it was a new experience for everybody. We're trying to figure it out. So again, I don't think we should be overly critical of how things were done, but I think it's more important to think about what are the best practices we can learn from so many different schools, including ourselves, and let's work on a solution that's going to help us move forward and get better. I think I've seen a lot of chatter on hybrid. A lot of people want hybrid classes, right? But my day job as a program manager, I manage about 40 or so, engineering staff, and we had to go online, and that's a transition from an administrator's perspective, which is what I was in that case. It's challenging. It's very challenging. But if I were to try and set something up for academic curriculum to be a hybrid, 2 or 3 days in campus and then the rest self-study or online, I think that takes a lot of planning, because you're not just considering the children. You talk about transportation, talk about the food and all the costs of stuff. There's just so much that goes into that. I just don't know if it'd be realistic for any school to do that well and efficiently in 2 or 3 months planning. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, it takes a great deal of effort for them to spin up, some kind of online curriculum. But I agree with you. I think it's, regardless of what happens with COVID, I think it's good that they have an online option. Yeah. Because to your point, a lot of students do better with online. And then if there's another emergency, then they're prepared.
That's right.
And then on top of it, imagine, and I'm just kind of thinking, spitballing here, but imagine if like 10 to 20% of the students really embraced online learning. Well, you would have a lot less need for maintenance of the physical schools.
You'd have smaller classrooms too.
And that too, yeah. So there's a lot of upside. Sure. If there's more of this online option, it could be less expensive and deliver a higher quality of education on a more personalized level. So I think there's a lot to be said for this. It's just painful going through the process in such a hurry.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that's the hard part, because you want to make sure, again, we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, right? You want to make sure that we're doing this efficiently and it's being effective, right? And it's not just getting the kids to switch. You gotta train up the teachers, right? You gotta train them up, because online curriculum is different than on campus. So there's lots of different things you got to take into consideration. And I'm pretty sure we don't have enough professional development hours for our teachers to switch over to online, right? Yeah. And not all teachers prefer that. I enjoyed being in front of in-person teaching there. That I prefer that. So even for me, switching over to online, that was different. But I got through it. But if I had to choose personally, I want to be in front of the students talking.
Of course, yeah. Wow, this is an interesting time. A lot of big issues to tackle at the school board level, and just kind of a interesting time in American history right now that we're going through.
I agree. I think even in the economy, it's going to change, right? Yeah. So many people are so risk averse to teleworking, but now everyone's doing it, and they're realizing that they can be just as productive. And I mean, I work from my garage, which is great, and so my commute is nothing, and then and I can have lunch with my wife and kids if I want, which mostly that's quality of life just kind of flipped itself. Now there are trade-offs, because again, I'm not with my employees. I'm not building that rapport, and then so I'm doing it over phone or over Zoom, and that's challenging too. But there are trade-offs to it. So I like the idea of a hybrid solution, but I want to do it right. I don't want to just jump into it. So
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, I'm loving this conversation. This is great. I mean, I think people are getting to know you as a school board candidate. And we're just getting the campaign season going here. I mean, you've already been out there talking to people. That's great. Usually it doesn't start getting hot and heavy until we get deeper into the summer.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate. Again, I telework, so I work from home. And so if I need to break away for a little bit to go meet somebody or get on a phone call with someone, it's really easy to do. And so I just try to take advantage of that. I started reaching out to people, in June. I understand there's the graduations and the end of school wrap up, but a lot of the administrators still work. And so now we're going into the summer. People have nowhere to go for the most part. Yeah. So I'm finding that people are more available than I realized they were. And it was also a lesson I learned from the last time I campaigned. You just got to get out there and start talking to people. And I, as this conversation is going, I really enjoy doing that. So that was easy.
Right on. Well, it's because it's so early. I mean, heck, what's today? June 24th.
Yeah.
Will you come back? Maybe in a few months.
Yeah. I was going to say, if we could have planned this a little better, I would have probably said, let's meet after the board meeting because there would be a lot more to talk about. We could easily do this again on Friday because we'll see what they come up with, right?
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to join me again. And I put this out to all candidates that are running for office to join me here on the John Riley Project and give voters a chance to get to know you because I love having these conversations because, you're trying to do the right thing for the community. People deserve to get to know you. And it's so hard for a candidate to get their message out. Mailers are expensive. You might be lucky if you get a 2-sentence quote in the local newspaper. The debates are rare, and you'd only get 30 seconds to respond. So,
and how's that going to look now? But how's that going to look now? You're right, because back in the day you do like these meet and greets, right? And now with COVID-19 and social distancing, and then we used to go, these debates and these panel forums you'd have. And I don't know what's going to happen going forward. So. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate having this platform and, joining you and being able to get the word out. Yeah, for sure. I'd be happy to come back again. I mean,
you're welcome to come back. All other candidates are welcome to join us here as well. And what I like to do at the end of these podcasts is just to ask, how can they reach you? But I can see it right there on your screen. So Jimmy4PUSD.com.
Yeah, that's right. And I do. So, Karam's my last one, obviously. So if you go Karam4PUSD, that works too. And on Facebook, it's Karam4PUSD. So I have a Facebook and a website. You can learn a little bit more about my background and some of the stuff I believe in, but I think we covered a lot of it. But yeah, as I go out and talk to the community, I'll be updating the website and the Facebook page to talk about things I've learned. Again, with the budget, there's a lot more information coming out. So I've been watching that. The PCPA hot topic. I have a lot of questions on how they're going to try and pull this one off if they do take it over. There's a lot of things going on. You started off with the Black and PUSD Instagram and Black Lives Matter it's a big deal. And I was really happy to see our community kind of get together and do it peacefully. So I'm a big advocate for people that have trouble or can't advocate for themselves for sure. So I'm all about this community. We've lived here since 2007. I have 4 kids, 2 have gone all the way through Poway High, and I've got one in Garden Road who's going to start 2nd grade, and then another one who's going to start Poway High as a freshman. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out with the new situation. So, so we're all in. We're going to be here for a long time. I think I have a lot to offer. Again, I'm all about giving back to the community. I've served the country for over 24 years, and I plan to keep doing that. I've learned a lot. I think I have a lot to share, and I like to think that I can. I like to think I could solve problems or help solve problems in a civilized, transparent, diplomatic way.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
That's where I'm at with that. Yeah. I think we can use some of that on the board for sure.
Oh my goodness, yes, please. We need some of that. So, Jimmy Karam, a candidate for Poway Unified School District, School Board District
E,
right?
Yeah,
E.
Right on.
Okay,
yeah.
So which is kind of the southern half of Poway and much of Sabre Springs, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. You got it.
Well, thanks for joining me, and I've loved this conversation. And good luck to you on your campaign.
Right on. Thanks, John. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right.